Hello, dear ones, beautiful souls. Thank you for being here, and whatever reason you've been drawn to be here. So, there's going to be another DM energy message, like kind of a check in. I keep getting, I don't know, it's interesting because I listened to, I think it was Mr. Lightwork recently, and there was something in particular that stuck out in a reading that he did a few weeks ago, I believe, and it was a December to Remember. And what's interesting was like, I mean, there was already some things going on that I've seen in the collective and in my own journey and things like that. That I was like, I could see it being a December to remember, but it was not for very big reasons, not anything that I would call it a December to remember kind of thing. But then there's been some stuff that's been going on in the collective and in my own journey and things like that, that it's like, oh, like, because I did have that feeling, like I resonated with that feeling of like, this is going to be a December to remember. And it felt like, some of it was piratey stuff, and some of it is divine stuff, and some of it is just weird humany stuff in the middle, and like, but I still didn't know, like, it was just that feeling. And sometimes, and you start to learn along this journey too, to appreciate those feelings. Like, you're not always going to know what they're connected to until it happens. That's part of divine timing too. It's part of having faith even when you cannot see the next step in front of you. You keep taking those steps, you keep holding that faith. And then some things started to happen that it's like, okay, all right, well, I already had the feeling. I already knew that it was going to be that. And I'm sure that Spirit lined me up with that Mr. Lightwork video to get me at least that phrase, December to remember. And then some things started happening that's like, oh, like I get it. Like I see what's coming through. And like there's still more that I don't know and won't know. And we might pull some cards in this one. This is more so a channeling. But what I'm getting is especially like, this is especially for those of you that have been dealing with divine masculines that I want to say they're especially immature, and they really like, it's like spirit provides them the opportunity to walk the divine path and to have it good and easy and things like that, and they still, like, they might I'm not saying they're stuck. I'm just saying, like, this has been their cycle, and you would recognize it. Like, they might take a few steps in the right direction and see that things are good, but then something happens and they run right back in the other direction. They end up in more tangles and more trouble and facing more karma. And like, you might even recognize it getting to the point to where even you are sitting there like, that they know that they're walking into karma, but they're still doing it. And the unfortunate thing is, like, situations like these, we're talking about divine masculines who have a bit of a ways to go with things, because they're likely dealing with mental health and addiction issues that are, that's part of why they keep walking further into things, and they tend to get themselves entangled with karmics that are like, oh no, I will keep you in it, and I will make sure that you don't go anywhere and that you stay tangled in these addictions and these cycles and these traumas and stuff like that. And they, as much as we could maybe sit on the outside and be like, well, but they're this age and they should be able to do better, or they should be able to say no, or they should be able to do this and that. Not when you've spent your life conditioned to be treated that way. Like, that's part of why it's so important that we, with our children, we as parents are much more conscious of what we do and how we raise our children and how we allow them to be raised by others, the influence that we let them have around them, like, because when we don't, we see dynamics like this. We see people that, like, they seem capable, they look capable, they don't have any particular reasons why they shouldn't be capable, but they aren't, and they show that they keep going back and back and back and back, reliving the same cycles, usually, that they went through as children and young adults. And either way, though, these DMs that I'm channeling, they're in a space where I feel like you are likely experiencing tangle with them in ways that you didn't expect. Maybe they reconnected with somebody from your end of things while keeping things disconnected with you to a certain degree. Maybe they're doing things that you're like, obviously you're not done and you're not moved on. You're not, you're still in this whole thing. So what are you doing? And then but I feel like you're probably in a space where you're torn between like, you're back to the age old, do I wait? Do I walk away? Do I keep my faith? Do I say, yeah, you know what? This is old. Like this is old and I want to live my life. Or do you find a middle ground again? Like, what do you do? Because you're likely feeling kind of a space between ouch and bored and frustrated, right? And if that's resonating and you resonate with what else I've said about these DMs, then what I want you to know is that part of this December to remember energy is that there's going to likely be a lot of piratey things, a lot of like chaos and unhealthy dynamics and things and tangles like that pop up more on their end. Like you are kind of in an observer position. This is going to be funny to say. You're kind of in a third party position. And what's funny about that is like, a lot of these DMs have been in such unhealthy tangles that they wanted you to be third party, not to be first party. And you likely, to whatever degree you could, walked away and focused on yourself and did stuff like that. And so you are in this third party position, and it's like it's the rejection is protection sort of thing. That's really funny. Air horn from a semi truck, right? There's confirmation. Like, that rejection is protection, because right now there are a ton of not favorable truths that are coming out about these masculines, and you're going to see some of it. And I want you to know that anytime that you're seeing some of it, you're not the only one. These things are coming out in other spaces too, and spirit is, it's not just divine intervention. It's like spirit in many ways with these masculines was like, okay, well, like, we've sent you the signiest signs, we've answered your prayers a bunch of times, we've shown you your divine feminine, we've shown you you're with a karmic, we've shown you that you're acting karmic, we've shown you all this stuff, and you still want to do it your way. You still want to be in the fear, in the ego, in the shadow. So we're going to let you. We're just, there's free will. You could choose that. We're going to let you. And so, spirits and guides and stuff let these DMs get into that space until, they're really in a space where they're not exactly divine masculines right now. They're masculines, and they're still trying to learn to wield that energy on its own. But they've gotten themselves into such pickles that it's all starting to tumble over, and like they're in this mode of like, it's kind of like, okay, the image that's coming to my mind is like if they were standing there and then someone starts throwing plates at them and cups, and like they're able to catch some of them, and they put some on their head and they're able to catch a bit more and stuff like that. But the plates keep coming, they keep getting tossed at them, and like, yeah, they might be able to stack them for a minute or maybe put down a stack, but already plates are falling, cups are falling, they're breaking on the ground, and they don't have time to pick them up because more plates are being thrown at them still. And it's not just that they're gonna break them, but they're gonna get hit by them, and they don't want to get hit by them, right? It doesn't feel good to have dishware thrown at you. In any case, so these masculines are likely to, what it feels like is like spirit's kind of going like, okay, well, you wanted to go this direction, let's really go, let's go all the way, right? Let's see where this path leads. When you choose shadow and ego above all else, let's see what happens when you put pridefulness and selfishness above everything else in unhealthy ways, and it hurts other people, especially innocents and divine beings and things like that. And so like those plates are going to keep coming, and you're going to start hearing, like, if you haven't already started hearing about things, you're going to start hearing about some probably pretty ugly truths coming out. You might even be one of the people who speak some of them, especially depending on how much this masculine leans into, like, a lot of these masculines are in this space of like, they're mad at you, and they know they really don't have a right to be mad at you, especially if you pulled out your sword when they were out of line, and you used it, but like they know that that was appropriate and that was good of you, but they're still mad. They're mad because they made a lot of bad decisions, and they expected that you, like everyone else, would just let them get out of it, that there wouldn't be any consequences, and more than anything, they didn't expect to still have feelings for you, and they didn't expect to be further entangled with people, very much connected to you, and they didn't expect to be in a space where they are right now, where all those, where the bag they were holding, the purse, the coins, the pentacles, is like still not stable. They may have managed to make their way into earning more and to, having more than they had before, but they still don't have enough of it for it to make the difference that they wanted. And now there's more to pay for, and they have to do more, and they have to get more entangled in order to keep going, to keep kind of living the lifestyle that they do. And so a lot of them, they might be feeling like they're mad at you too. And especially if you're doing even just decently in your life, you're doing good, you're living as honestly as you can, you're doing your light work, if you got kids with them or kids of your own, you're taking care of them, you're doing things like that, like they're envious. Even if you're not doing, like, even if you're not like uber successful, and you're like making thousands of dollars a month and doing things like that, even if you're going, you're transitional in terms of housing or work or things like that, just the fact that you exist in the world and that you continue on doing good, being warm, doing your light work, things like that for them, it flies in the face of everything that they've ever known, and that turns the tables on their justifications for why they allow themselves to be piratey too, you know and it's one of those, they're upset, they're totally upset, and they look around them and they know that the karmics around them they're not supporting them, they're not going to be team players, they're just going to keep taking, it's just going to be, become more and more weight on top of them. They know that the position that they're in right now is from being in those tangles and triangulations and things like that. Like, they know that. And at this point in time, too, a lot of these DMs have like maxed out their ability to support this, kind of karmic ecosystem that they've gotten themselves into. They can't get more loans. Their reputation is not in a good place. They've borrowed from family. They've borrowed from friends. They've done all the, they've sold things. They've done all that. Like, next is to start selling things that they never thought they'd give up in their lives, just to try to make ends meet, when many of them make more than enough to be able to do it. If you've been listening to other readers and stuff over at least the past 2 to 3 years, a lot of these masculines stayed in karmic tangles because they felt like they could not feel like men, like masculines, unless they made a certain amount of money and were able to afford a certain lifestyle. And now they're in a space to where the money's there, but they still can't afford the lifestyle. They still can't, they still can't do what they felt like they needed to in order to measure themselves up. It was a false way to measure themselves, but like, they're in that space where it's like, I don't know what it feels like, is this December to remember energy is very much like they've made too many deals with devils, and now all of those devils are there to collect. And they all need something and want something and demand something, and they're all in the space of like, why aren't you doing better? Why aren't you getting me this thing that you want? And then on top of that, masculines are looking at their bank accounts and watching, the coins fall out of them faster than they can refill it. And they're looking at it like, they've pulled the last bit of money that they can from the last few people that they could, and they know they're not going to be able to repay it. They know that it's not going to end up in a good situation, and many of them are going to lose their places to live for a while, and they're not going to have, they're going to be facing a lot of the karma of the kinds of things that they put others through, or the situations that they've created for others, and they see it and they can't unsee it. And so they're in a space of kind of like still trying to catch those plates, even though a bunch are breaking around, and they could just say stop. They could say, okay, spirit, I hear you, and I don't want to do this anymore, and I want to get better. But they're still in a space where, one, many of them don't recognize that it could be that simple, and two, they there's a pridefulness in there. Like, I wanted to say, "Oh, how the mighty have fallen," but it felt like it should be replaced with, "Oh, how the proud have fallen." I feel like there's a different axiom that's something along those lines of, like, those filled with the most pridefulness will fall the hardest, kind of thing. And that's because in order for them to learn these lessons, because there's positive pride, there's healthy pride, but pridefulness in an unhealthy negative way, like 15 on the clock, right? See, right? Two double cards, right? um and it's funny because then it's 6 and 6, which is 12. So then that's the hanged man. So two doubles equals a hanged man, right? And that's how they're feeling too. They're feeling like a hung man, and not in the fun sexual innuendo way. Like, no, they're feeling like they don't have any other options. They've signed the last option that they can support. They have gotten the last bit of money they can get. They're already going nuts with what karmics and everyone else around them are doing. And Spirit is like bringing in more of these tangles and being like, here, what are you going to do with this? Here, what are you going to do with that? Here, you're going to do with this. I feel like they've got some sort of a few snarky guides too that are like, well, this is what you asked for. This is what you said you wanted. This is what you said you wanted. You said you didn't want to connect with your divine feminine. You didn't want her help. You didn't want to be stuck in this place or that place. You said you didn't want to be with your karmics either, and then you did, and then you didn't. And, like, you said you didn't want to have these connections with these people, and then now you have them. And you said you wanted to feel like you had it all, and now you have all of it. You have all the responsibility, you have all the bills, you have all the things, you have all of it. It's too much. That's what masculines are realizing. Having it all is too much. Having it all means more than just having the good stuff. It means the responsibilities too. It means all of it. And many of them, didn't realize their own manifesting abilities, and that they did call in having it all, right? And so what it feels like is this December to remember energy, if you're resonating with this jabbering so far, is that you're probably going to see, I want to say, more at a distance. Like, it's definitely going to involve you, but it's more at a distance. You're going to see it. It's almost like if you were on the shore and you were watching like a fireworks display go off on a barge in the middle of the lake, right? Like, you're there, you're affected by it to a degree, but you're not in the middle of it. Whereas these masculines are on the barge, right? And let's say they're on the barge, and on top of, dealing with all the loud sounds and everything, something goes wrong and they go off in the wrong order, and it creates a panic and things like that. So, like, it's that jump ship vibe, and you're at that distance, and like, you could see this happening, like, right, you could see that the timing went off and everything's going off, and you could see people diving into the water, but you're fine, you're on the shore, you can call for help, you can do things like that, you can make lots of decisions, but you're otherwise fine. Like, even if you're emotionally affected by it, it's not going to be to the degree that it may have been before, but you're more so going to be watching this stuff happening, more an observation. Like, Spirit will make sure that you get details and things of that nature that are like, you can sit back and be like, wow, like, when that was a spectacular, I wanted to say failure, but not quite failure. Conundrum, it was a show that wasn't supposed to go that way, and it was a failure that was, if it was gonna fail, it was like an amazing, like, go big or go home kind of failure. And it feels like that energy coming up, like, you're gonna see that stuff. But here's the funny thing: if you stayed on this long enough to listen, this is what Spirit's been telling me. This is what is going to happen right before things get better. And that could mean a whole lot of things. Only you really know in your heart what that means. Like, are things going to start getting better with who you believe is your DM? Is there going to be someone else who comes in and proves that they are your actual DM? Is there going to be, are you going to be out of the situation enough that it doesn't matter? It could be separate stuff going on. Like, in your heart what that means. But this is kind of, it's kind of like the calm before the storm energy, except for it's the other way around. It's the rainbow after the storm. It, like, yes, you can see a storm coming. You might be somewhat, whatever degree you're involved or not involved in it, you see the storm happening. You see it coming, you see it happening. You'll see when it starts to dissipate, and you get to experience the rainbow at the end of it, that beautiful healing light all over the place. I'm going to go ahead and leave this here. Feel free to comment below if this resonates with you, and I'll see you in the next video.